People Not Titles podcast is brought to you by Land Trust Title Services, your partners for results. Well, hello, everyone. This is Steve Kaempf with the People Not Titles podcast, and I am so delighted today to have Rob Finlay on. Rob is an entrepreneur. He is an author of the bestseller, Wall Street Journal bestseller, Beyond the Building, which has to deal with how to build your commercial real estate portfolio, which was really widely acclaimed. And most importantly, I think to Rob, he's a family man and a dad. And that's why we have him on the podcast today on April 29th. Rob's book, Hey Dad, Everything You Should Have Learned About Life But Didn't, comes out. And there's a big book signing in New York Times Square, right, that we just mentioned, Rob. And so, Rob, thanks a lot for being on the podcast. And we're really excited to dig in on this.
Well, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. It's great.
Yeah. So Rob, so first off, what I just want to talk about what I know you mentioned in your book what inspired you to write it, but I'm sure that was the thing that tipped you over. So what was this book inside of you for quite some time?
I think it's inside of all parents, right? I mean, we spend our whole life sort of answering questions for our kids. And so I think it was just one of those things where, yeah, the catalyst, that moment was that late night phone call. But in reality, I have four kids, four young adults, gone through this period of time. And so it just was sort of a time to do it. And I think when I was looking at writing this, what I really wanted to accomplish was more of a foundation for young adults. It's not everything you need to know. It's big building blocks, which I think are critical for young adults that are going into this transition stage to becoming dependent people.
Yeah, Rob, and so I think it's a great book for kids. And I think, being a father of four myself, I look at everything you've covered and I'm like, holy mackerel, I miss some of these things myself. So I'm excited about, getting this book into the hands of my children and other young adults. And I thought that you covered the core elements of what we would define. There's a lot of different ways we define success, but the core elements to kind of launch you onto, becoming all you can be as a person.
Right. Well, I think one of the things too, and I can tell you, it's not just young adults. Part of the book and the main thing is it's not me. I mean, I gave a little bit of my experience and stuff
Totally.
like that, but in reality, I sought out 30 experts and all things from automotive to taxes and insurance. I have a Navy SEAL that talks about emergencies and being in bad situations. I have a NASCAR race car driver and his crew chief talking about how you should maintain a car and why it's important to maintain a car, and everybody in between. And I did that because I thought it was really important to get this wide perspective. But I thought what was amazing was the amount of information that I actually learned while I was doing this. I was like, wait, I didn't know that. Oh, that's actually a really good point. I should probably know that. So yeah, so it was a great thing. I think we put way too much pressure on ourselves. Being an adult, you're always learning, right?
Absolutely.
And that's one of the best things about being an adult is that you are always learning. And so you don't know everything, but getting a basis and having some confidence, I think, is what's critical for our young adults. I try to put it in perspective. If you've gone to the airport and they have those walkways that are motorized, they basically you step on them and they take you down through the gate. My kids and I, we used to call them the magic carpet rides.
Yep.
And I think a lot of our young adults are in a situation where their life is basically on that magic carpet ride from the time they're born, first grade, second grade, so on and so forth. Their life is really predetermined for them. And then all of a sudden, the magic carpet ride stops. And when it stops, it can be very intimidating and very difficult for both parents and the young adults. The parents want to sort of nurture their child and protect them like they have. So they might be a little too much overbearing or too protective in this situation where the kids need to go out. And the kids at the same point can be overwhelmed with the amount of
Mhm.
decisions. Where do I get a job? Where do I work? Where do I go? Where do I live? Who do I live with? Do I live with the roommates? Or all of these things just overwhelm them. And they almost become stalled at that point because the amount of inputs and questions and indecision is really forcing them to be in a tough situation.
Yeah, that's great. As was reading the book, Rob, I thought there were several, it exposed me in several ways of, wow, I could have done better here. I could have done better there. And then it struck me, you don't need to be the perfect model of these ideas for the ideas to be good and impact your kids. And so maybe talk just a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was pretty interesting when I interviewed all these people, and a lot of them were in this demographic where they had kids they're at this stage in life as well. And I think for the most part, I know that people will have real good expertise, right? If I have a finance background, so maybe my kids learned a little bit more about finance
Sure.
and things like that. Well, I can guarantee you my kids don't know nearly what Michael McDowell's kid, who's a NASCAR driver, his kids know about cars, right? So
Yes.
you have to give that to perspective. I think the most important thing, there's a couple of chapters that it doesn't matter what your knowledge base is, but it's about creating a good human, a good individual. And I think as
Hmm.
as a as a parent, that's really all we can strive for, right?
Yes.
Is that's really what's important. And I think part of this goes back to why I wrote this book. It's not my day job. I feel I've have
Hmm.
businesses and things like that, but it's about having purpose, right?
Mm.
And helping kids have purpose in life
Being intentional.
and be intentional, exactly.
Yeah.
And so often, I get it. I've been doing a lot of these podcasts and a lot of shows, and one of the questions that people ask is like, well, if you could just take one thing away, if you could just train your kids one thing, I said, well, there's a couple of things, but if you only had one thing, just have your kid be a decent human being. That's
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
That's all you can ask. That you've
Yeah.
won, right? Just
Yeah.
make them a good, have them, empathetic, have them care about other people, have them do things like that's what matters, and that's it.
Hmm. Yeah, and Rob, there are some people that are natural mentors and natural leaders
Yep,
and all that, and they might intrinsically just be kind of coaching up their kids all the time. But I think this especially appeals to those that maybe that doesn't come so naturally to, but it
right,
allows you in these small chapters, whether it be get a job, become an entrepreneur, get a side hustle from an economic standpoint, to have a touch point for a conversation. Because a lot of times kids leave our house and where you were really engaged from 0 to 18, or maybe even through the college years, all of a sudden you're more shifting to talking about news or how life is going. This allows you to have substantial conversations, kind of topic driven, where you say, what do you think about that? And maybe even share some of the lessons that you didn't do so well. I wish I would have known this and I could have done better and whatever. So how do you, yeah, is that how you've kind of, what inspired you to write this too?
yeah, absolutely. Look, this is look. You want to talk to your kids, and any one of your listeners that have young adults, say no, or teens, right? You could
Mhm.
probably go, even further back. I don't remember that far back, but you
Yep.
know, talking to your kids is always something that I'm fortunate. I have a good relationship with my kids, but are they always listening? Are they always consuming the information that I'm trying to give them, or am I preaching? Am I lecturing them? Am I,
Mhm.
which it could come across? And so having things where as an adult you can sort of look and say, here are the things that we're going to need to talk about, and this is what we need to do, and this is how we can do that. And so
Mhm.
I think that's part of the experience is really, and how I framed the book was to give a manual that's not preachy, that's not pushy, but helping people communicate and open up and discuss.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too that removing, as a dad, removing yourself as a subject matter expert on all things and actually bringing in the experts to provide unique expertise, statistics, data points, things like that adds power to the book where you have the credibility as someone who really cares about your child. And then you have the subject matter expert. So it's almost like dual powered in that way.
Right. And by the way, this isn't just for like your own kids. I think a lot of people that I've heard of, it's like this is about oftentimes it was funny. People ask, well, why is it during graduate? Like, why are you launching the book right now? And I'm like, well, it's graduation season. And I think as somebody who's been involved with people and friends and colleagues and business acquaintances, I've always had sort of the same thing. It's like, you have these young adults who have been part of your life. And part of what I talk about in the book is how important it is for young adults and young kids to start networking early and start talking early.
Mhm.
And but as part of that is having this wide group of young adults that I talk to and mentor and are friends or friends of family. And it was important that I wanted to give them something from me to
Mhm.
take with them. So when they're graduating, it's a great graduation gift. The other thing too is, and part of the purpose of this book and what I'm trying to do is actually have the person who's giving the book to a young person, a young adult, personalize it themselves. One of
Mhm.
the things that we've had the release copy go out to people. And one of my favorite things is to hear back from readers, people who have received the book, who have had a little inscription from their grandmother or from
Mhm.
their father or from a family friend, somebody who's
Mhm.
providing their own advice. I had
Mhm.
a woman who was like, well, always put fresh flowers in your house to make it smell nice. So these were like warm personal touches from somebody who's giving advice to the next generation. So making this book is really not just about me. I'm just giving a
Mhm.
foundation, and
Mhm.
the experts in this book are giving their advice of that foundation. But ultimately, the giver, I would love to have the giver of this book to somebody give it something personal. Put a
Mhm.
put a recipe, and we've seen recipes. We've seen
I love it.
add vinegar to your
Mhm.
mouthwash and things like that. Just these wonderful little life advices from one generation to the next.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I think too that Rob, this sets the table for um yep, now that was a great book. Well, now all of a sudden you have a dialogue that can continue beyond the book,
Right.
right? Or all of a sudden it's like, hey, I have something else, or you can even go deeper on a lot of these things. I think I'm trying to think of what I would have added, and I can't say I would have added much, honestly. That these are the check boxes was like, man, if you can dial these in early in life, you are really setting yourself up then to work at the more finer detailed things, understanding your own strengths and weaknesses. And, you got all these different tools, but these are like the basics of life, so to speak.
Right. All I wanted, as I said, I'm just trying to give a little lift up to
Yes.
to a young adult when they're going up, because experiencing this myself through my four kids and friends who have had children at the same situation, it can be overwhelming, right?
Hmm.
It is. There's a lot going on. New job, new place to live, maybe
Hmm.
new location, new
Hmm.
friends, new things, all these new experiences, and they do not have the foundational or the foundation that they've had in their past 20 some odd years of life.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it really is meant to be taken as a sort of that first level. But you're absolutely right. As the adults change, as your young adult changes, the conversations change, right?
Yeah.
Mine are no longer asking about how to get an apartment, not asking about taxes, right? They're asking maybe a little bit more technical questions, right?
Hmm.
What's a balanced portfolio or things
Hmm.
like that, and,
Hmm.
and buying a home, all these things that happen as you mature and grow on your adulting life and adulting career.
Yeah. And one of the things that made me think of, Rob, if you're an accomplished person, which you are, and these things are so far in your rear view mirror that you almost forget about all the stuff that you needed to know. I mean, it reminded me moving into my first place, buying my first car, all these different things. I'm like, a lot of times you kind of gloss over that, like you're expecting your child to get up to speed where you're at. And it's like, holy mackerel, don't forget the road you traveled.
Well, don't forget the thing that's also very alarming. We didn't have something when we were growing up called social media.
Yes.
So my first car was a beat up junker of a car, right? If I go on social media, I can look and just see some 20-year-old. Here's my first car. It's a Rolls Royce, right? Or it's a
Yes.
it's a
Yeah.
Porsche. It's like,
Yeah.
no, it's not real. This is not real stuff. And
Yeah.
so I think that's where a lot of it too is that it's giving these kids an idea that, yeah, this is my life. This is what it took. And you're absolutely right. It was a long time ago when I was typing resumes and sending out cover letters. Now you have networking, or you have LinkedIn and Indeed and all these other forms to look for jobs. But the fundamental thing that hasn't changed is you still, as a young adult, you need to network. You need to put yourself out there to do
Yeah.
it. And a lot of young adults don't have that. They're comfortable with their cell phone, they're comfortable with social media, but they're not comfortable asking for a meeting. Can I get
Yeah.
on a call with you? Can I get 15 minutes of your time to discuss this?
Yes. And at one point, you mentioned this, at one point, forget all the other BS, you need to make an impression. And
Yep.
what is the impression you're going to make? And I thought that part of the book was like a Cliff Notes version of How to Win Friends and Influence People, which was
Right.
kind of a life-changing book for me when I was a young person, to get that and realize, wow, how I conduct myself. It's not just a matter of luck or who you know. It's what kind of impression are you going to make when people meet you?
Right, right. It's
Yeah.
huge. And look at that. You use that today, right? I mean, this
Yes,
is,
absolutely.
you grow. And that's the thing with there's so many, there's like soft skills and then there's hard skills, right?
Yes.
And as an adult, you have to learn. And sometimes if we're in an environment where things have been sort of decided for us and we've sort of been sheltered, and you know what, if I didn't get enough playing time, mom or dad would talk to the coach or whatever, or those are the things that will impact us going forward. And you're right, networking, talking to people. I have a daughter who moved to a whole different community, didn't know
Hmm.
anybody there. Well, if she wasn't able to talk to people, she wouldn't have any friends. And so I think
Yeah.
with this, with a work from home environment as well as everything else that's going on, it's becoming harder and harder. And it's a soft skill that is a critical soft skill to master.
Yeah, and I think one thing that doesn't lose itself on me, Rob, is you're a guy that arguably checked off a lot of these boxes. And once you do, you still have a profession, you still are an entrepreneur, you're still doing all those things, but now you're able to write a book. And one of this, being disciplined about these very basics actually frees you. It seems restraining when you're trying to get it all down, but once you have it down, it allows you then it's a launching pad for you to go beyond just the check boxes, but to start to exercise who you're really designed to be.
Right. Well, we talk about this in the book, and not just from a human standpoint, but from a practical matter, is having financial freedom. I think
Yes.
one of the things that young adults struggle with is this concept of a budget, right? And
Mhm.
a budget is always negative. I don't want a budget because it's going to tell me I
Can't
can't.
spend this, can't buy that.
Right,
Yeah,
right. There's
can't,
always
can't,
no.
can't.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But when you get to the mindset, and we talked quite a bit on this, is actually a financial freedom, and having a budget is actually liberating. It's
Mhm.
so wonderful because you don't have to worry about like what I worried about. I was in debt when I had
Yeah.
my first son was my first child was young early on in my life. Well, I was just starting out. I didn't know budgets. I didn't know anything. I was a
Right.
child. I wish I had this kind of foundation and this kind of mindset when I started out. And
Mhm.
so having these kind of things where it's just a change of the conversation. The financial freedom in a budget is not a negative. This is actually a positive. This is going to help you live and be the better self, because you can go out and have more fun if you know you're living within your means, as opposed to worrying about that guilt the next day that when you spent too much at the bar that night, and now you can't afford it.
Yeah. So Rob, what was your relationship with your dad? Was there a mentor relationship with this? Did some of this get inspired by
Hey,
the
thanks
things?
for listening to the People Not Titles podcast. We are brought to you by our great sponsors, Land Trust Title Services, your partners for
Inspired by
results.
the things your dad taught you?
Oh, very much. I think very much so. My dad, and it was started out as an airline pilot, became an entrepreneur in real estate. So very much very similar background. He taught me a lot of things: persistence and hard work, and also the things that I was very fortunate to have. For example, how to get a job required sending out letters, making phone
Yes.
calls, right? I didn't have, if you didn't have that kind of advice, it would have been hard to get a job back when I graduated, when
100%.
right. And so he gave me a lot of those skills. I'm not about, I think parenting and the relationship with parents and fathers in particular range all sorts of dynamics. And so I don't want to, there's not a
No,
right
I
or a wrong.
understand that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's important that, as a father and being a father now, I try to match it with, compassion, some hard
Mhm.
love,
Mhm.
some learning experiences. But at the same point, I'm guilty where my daughters never had to do anything on their car when they were under my roof.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
They wake up, Daddy, there's a light on in my
Yeah,
car.
there's a sound, there's a
Yep.
noise.
Super dad. Okay, here we go.
Right,
I've got
right.
it, sweetheart. Don't you worry about it.
Yeah,
Go back to bed. Right.
yeah,
Because and I think a lot of it too is there's probably a lot of guilt associated with working so hard and so much that, we know being a parent is hard, and we know that there's always, you never feel like you've done a great job with it. So,
yeah.
so doing that is just made a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it makes me think too, Rob, that, there's number one, there's single parent households. And then,
Mhm.
when you look at like certain strengths of each individual in the family, the parent model, some of this stuff just doesn't come natural. So you're not good at it. You've never been good at it. And so how are you going to teach it? But here now, this can be something that you can pass along regardless of if you're even good at it.
Right.
Or regardless if you're in the fight alone and just trying to, keep your head above water, or just, coming up for air all the time.
Right. Well, it's funny that you say you're absolutely right. I mean, everybody teaches his own, right? And one of the things I had in here was I was interviewing this woman who's a cleaning expert. And it was funny because she was talking to me about how my cleaning style was when I was younger versus where it is now. And now I'm married and, have kids. So my cleaning style is very different. But back when I was a young single man, I was not clean. But
Cleaning.
so my perspective, right, is very different.
Right.
And so it took an expert to say, hey, you know what? Yeah. You're absolutely right. In a single parent household, even if you're in a dual parent household, nobody has all the answers.
Yeah,
Right.
100%.
And I don't care. As I said earlier, it's like, yep, you know what? I might know finance,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't really know how to maintain a car. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to, in an emergency like this, would I know the right thing to do? I mean, the things that it also comes from timing too, right? World has changed, has evolved quite a bit in the 20 some odd
Yeah.
years since
Yeah.
I was a young adult, right? And
Yeah.
so things that I never worried about, I didn't know. One of the questions I asked a paramedic, like, what are the top 3 things that every young adult should know? And the paramedic, and I was thinking, and I'm like, I already know this answer, right? CPR,
Yeah. Yeah.
Heimlich
Yeah.
maneuver.
Heimlich. Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy was like, number 1, Narcan. Know how to administer Narcan, which is this, for the drug. And I was like, what? He's like, yes, it's one of the most important things that you have access to it and know how to deliver it, because in this
Wow.
demographic,
Yeah.
that is a big sell. And the second one he said is from an emergency standpoint, is know how to call 911.
Mm-hmm.
And why to call 911? Because he was worried that kids would be worried that they would be afraid if one of their friends overdosed or had too much to drink or something, they were afraid that to call 911 and put everybody in more jeopardy. So those are things like that didn't exist, and social media didn't exist. So
Yes.
making it more relevant to today
Yes.
was important.
And yet, you cover the shelter, water, and food, and I didn't know that. I learned something there. And you think, oh, we're not going to go back to primitive times, but how many different, whether it be fires or hurricanes or whatever calamities, it's like, how do I stay alive here during this period of time to make it through to another day? And that's, very enlightening. So,
Oh yeah, and that's a Navy SEAL. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, I have it here, 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 here. And I was thinking about that. When we talk about this, and it is in the book, it's like if all of a sudden you lost power and everything,
mhm.
right? And you live in a remote area, you couldn't get it. How long could you survive?
Right.
And I was like, wait a second. You're
Yeah.
right. Right. If my
And
refrigerator,
it's not like you don't have to spend $1 million to stay alive for 3 days. I mean, it's just $50 and you're there.
right.
But but if you don't have it at that point in time, the $50 isn't going to help you anymore.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I can tell you after that interview with the Navy SEAL, I went out and bought all my kids special, like, basically they build the kits, right? You can just buy these kits that are a
Yeah,
little backpack. It has water, food, and shelter, right? It's like,
yeah,
you have, there's this limited time to get shelter, limited time to get water, limited time to get food, and it covers all of it for you. So, and it was
absolutely.
cheap. It was cheap money.
Yeah, that's great. So Rob, you're in, I want to just shift just for a moment while we have you. A lot of our listening audience are in the real estate business. They're entrepreneurs. Maybe I just want to touch on how were you able to, over the course of your life, you went from corporate, right, to starting your own business. How were you able to balance kind of work and home life? What were your priorities like to make sure that your kids were still engaged and involved with you?
One of the hardest challenges, and I said, I think a lot of it's coming to this book was, is there guilt, right? I mean, I think when
Yeah,
I'm writing it, people ask, well,
yeah,
it was a question I get, was it just guilt because you weren't around?
yeah.
And I tried, and I think that's where it comes back is it's very, very hard to
Hmm.
be an entrepreneur
Hmm.
and have the responsibility of a company and a growing company. And
Other people that are relying on you for payroll and blah 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 blah.
everything, right? And
Vision.
especially in a startup,
Yes.
I'm the person, I'm the product person, I'm the, finance person, I'm like doing everything.
Hmm.
And I think that was really hard as the same time trying to be a parent and
Hmm.
trying to, and at this time, 4 kids. And it
Hmm.
really is very, very hard trying
Hmm.
to mix, the travel schedule and the business schedule with the personal schedule. And you know what? I think time will tell. I feel like I did a good job. It's hard.
Hmm.
As you said, I don't think even my mom today would say, "Oh, I did so many things wrong with you and your brother." My brother is also in the real estate space, very
Hmm.
successful, 4 young
Hmm.
adults as well, very successful on their own. I'm like, Mom, what do you, really? It's like,
Yeah,
I
we're
appreciate,
okay.
right? We're okay. We're and I think that's sort of the challenge, right? You always worry and you always wonder if you've done the right thing. And I think come back to the same point, adulting and being a good parent, it's all about producing a decent kid, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Just produce a decent human who has empathy, who cares about other people, who has a little bit of drive, a little bit of motivation.
Mhm.
That's all you need to do.
Yeah, Rob, and how old's your oldest, Rob?
At 28,
Okay, 28. And so what I'm noticing, I have a child that just turned 31.
okay.
And what I'm noticing is that the older they get, the more forgiving they are because they have to go through everything that you went through and they realize, dang, man, this is hard.
Oh
Have
yeah.
you seen that?
Oh, absolutely. Well,
Yeah,
what still shocks me though is I was 26 when I had my one who's 28,
yeah.
right? And I'm like, I was 2 years into this. So you were already two, and I already had your sister, right? I was like, you have no idea. And you're sitting here, telling me
Yeah,
how tough your life is. Try changing
right,
diapers, my friend.
right. Yeah,
Talk about waking up, right? You go to the hospital. I come back with you. There's no
yeah,
manual, right? There's no hey dad manual on this.
right.
And in fairness, it was, hey mom, how do I do it? Hey mom, how do I do this? Hey mom. So
Yeah, that's so true. Rob, well, we're excited about getting this book out to the public. I just want to talk while I got you. I want to talk a little bit about commercial real estate with
sure.
you. We have a large audience that deals in commercial real estate. How's the market been for you over the year, and what are you seeing over the next year? We got tariffs, we got this, we got that, a lot of different concerns. Anything you can give us on that front?
Yeah, I think, look, this is, every time there's volatility, there's opportunity.
Yes.
And what I would stress to your audience is I'm a big believer in the way that real estate works. There's the asset side, there's the debt side, and the return. And I think a lot of real estate operators really focus heavily on the asset side. I can go to almost any real estate office, and the owner or managing director could tell me exactly, oh, this market has got a 3% occupancy rate or vacancy rate, and my TIs cost this, or all every spout about that property. But when you ask them, well, what's your duration of your debt? Or, where are you? Could you refinance today if you pulled out? And so having the same type of interest and focus on your debt as you do your asset will pay dividends in this market, and really understanding it's just math. I think a lot of times we do a lot in our business at Defease with Ease 30 Capital to help borrowers understand debt and how to maximize it and how to really optimize it with what they think the property is going to be. And I do believe that there are properties, people, and it's just natural tendency, focus on on what's most critical right in front of them, right? So, hey, I've got this short-term maturity, I've got this, or this property's not doing that well. And they focus a lot of attention on that. When the savior could be another property in that portfolio that they haven't really paid attention to, but has lower leverage, or maybe has some equity involved in it. So to me, the thing where we're seeing in real estate, interest rates aren't coming down anytime soon. So don't, I don't
Get that out of your head.
Yeah, get that out of your head. And by the way, in the short period, if they go down, spreads will go up. So, and this volatility, everybody hates this volatility. Every lender hates this volatility. Everybody. So while it's volatile, which I think we're going to have for a little bit longer, you have to deal with the cards that you were dealt with. So take those cards and figure out what is the best path forward for the next few years.
Stop wishing for something to change in the cards. You got them already, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So, anything else on that, Rob?
No, I think that's, I mean, look, I could go on for
you can go on
hours
and on,
on interest rates and hedging and proper debt optimization, but ultimately it comes down to a fundamental. You can't just look at basic facts. Somebody looks at a loan and says, well, geez, why would I refinance my 4% loan in a market that's a 6% loan market? Why would I do that? And there could be some reasons why. They're still paying their pref, or there's all these different things. It's just a calculation. And that's why for us, we love real estate. We love real estate finance and debt optimization, because it's just math.
Yes.
We created the defeasance market 25 years ago. It's just math.
Yes.
Right? So this is just math.
That's great. Rob, just touching on your book, Beyond the Building, who's the type of person, who did you write that for? And what is kind of the main message? I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I plan on it. Just tell us just briefly on that while we have you.
Sure. So it's a book about real estate companies, how to operate a real estate company. This comes from my own background of operating a real estate company. It also comes from my background for providing goods and services and advice, and having friends who have been in this business for years, and seeing what really good companies did, and basically spotlighting that. And the thing that came down, which was sort of a summary of the whole book, is the real estate companies that are thriving in these volatile markets are the ones that aren't just thinking about the real estate, but they actually operate their company as a technology company and not a real estate company. A perfect example, Domino's Pizza. Domino's would never say they're a pizza shop. They're a technology company whose product is pizza. And we found that the real estate companies that had that sort of mentality were well ahead of the game. They utilized data and analytics. They understood the personas, and really had people that were responsible of engagement of their customer, knowing their customer, and all these things that the technology.
Yeah, they had the workflow down, right? And all the things of to be able to deliver the product.
Right. And so all it is it's another manual, very simple. Like, here are the things that these really good companies do. Read it, apply it, and I think it will make a big change for you. Now, not everybody's going to do it. Not everybody's going to make every change, but it at least gave people the idea to wonder why did this real estate company have 5,000 units in 2015, but today they have 150,000? What did they do right? Right. And I think that's what it was about.
That's great. Rob, there's a bunch of people, I think, that will be watching this that probably think they got a book in them. And, so you went from a guy with some ideas and probably, but what got you over the edge? Because that takes a lot of inertia. It's like getting a plane off the runway, right?
Yep.
From, hey, I have some good ideas, to assembling them all, to actually delivering them how you delivered. Is there any advice you could give to the author wannabes?
Yes. So first and foremost, If you think you're going to make money writing a book, forget now.
Everyone says that. Yeah.
It is there's no way. If you saw how many copies books actually sell, it would make your head spin. So
Yeah.
you have to do it as a labor of love.
Yes.
That being said, if you're going to do it, and I do believe in many cases, to me, I do it because I love seeing something that started and finished. It's nice. But I would say there's a couple things. There's a couple ways to do it. One, there are so many book coaches out there. Go to a book coach. Have them help you write it. They're going to help you with information, how to organize your thoughts, how to write it. Don't go on ChatGPT and try to, get your book written there because, people will tell.
Yeah.
But it's not that hard. And self-publishing, I mean, Amazon's just made it so easy. You can write a book and self-publish it without a lot of, a lot of stress other than doing it yourself. But if you feel like you have it, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And part of that process, from what I hear too, Rob, is once you get it out, there's room for more then, as opposed to that your creativity having a cork on the top of the bottle, you've released it. And so part of that, just the process, is not just what you're delivering, but who you come while you're delivering it. Right.
Absolutely. It's fun. They're creative. Right. If you start getting it, and as I said, once you get through the fact that, you're not going to quit your day job, and unless you create that Lord of the Rings, type thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. But those are few and far. That's like, becoming LeBron James. Like, okay, it could happen, but probably not. But once you get past that, it is great fun. And I really think it's important for any human, whether or not you're an entrepreneur, a real estate professional, or anything, having a creative outlet that
100%.
makes yourself a little bit more interesting. I can tell you, 20 years ago, you talked to me, I was a one trick pony. I could talk to you about, defeasance, and I would put you to sleep in seconds. Now, realizing what's actually more exciting, more entertaining, is having different facets, different interests. Yeah, I like farming. I like this. I like that. And having that as that broad band of interest just makes you a lot more interesting, and quite frankly, makes your life a lot more fun.
Yeah, and I think too, then as you're bringing a whole new person back to your work, as opposed to the one trick pony that all you are is this thing and all that. So I applaud you in your effort to deliver this to humanity. That's great.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So Rob, I just want to say, we'll have all of the information. Your book comes out April 29th. How they can reach you. You have your own website. Are you available for speaking or anything, Rob, too, as well?
I do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of engagements. It's and I enjoy doing that too. As I said, this is fun for me. I love talking about something, that I'm passionate about. So yes. And if they go on my website, which is robfinlay.com, they can get all that information. They can go to the heydadbook.com and order. You can go to Amazon and Barnes and Noble and pre-order it. It'll be delivered as soon as it's available. So, but yeah, no, I like doing that. And I encourage people to look at my Instagram page, because quite frankly, you'll see that I do a lot of things that are just sort of fun.
Okay, great. We'll take a look at, and Rob, also you're speaking, you go from, from the, your dad, coaching to, going from, entrepreneur, going from career to entrepreneur, all these kind of nuanced things that, you have a wide variety of expertise. So there's more to it. And so I really encourage people to get to the website.
Oh, great. Yeah, no. Well, look, being in my age demographic in commercial real estate sort of doesn't make me I'm not a unicorn, right? There's a lot of us. So I think a lot of people I can have a conversation with almost any real estate person who's close to my age, and they'll commensurate, right? As you and I have. So
yes, absolutely. Well, thanks a lot, Rob. We're glad to have you. And this is the People Not Titles podcast signing off.
Hey, thanks for listening to the People Not Titles podcast. We are proudly sponsored by Land Trust Title Services. If you enjoyed the podcast, please hit the like button, please subscribe, and we'd love it if you'd share our podcast with your friends. Thanks a lot.